This election, I don't think is so much about who black folks think are black or who black folks are going to vote for as it relates to Kamala. It's really, is white America ready for another black president following the blacklash in the wake of Obama?
That's how we got treason in the first place. What was that bullshit?
So are the whites ready for another rodeo?
I think. Well, I'm not gonna say any of that. What I'm thinking, but what I will say is this. It would give an explanation. I believe the statistical tie on the polls gives you the answer you seek.
Exactly.
I think that because there really is no other explanation for it. Period. There just isn't.
We don't see.
She won a countywide race of DA, term limited. Won statewide race attorney general, term limited. Made her way to the Senate. Made her way to the VP ticket. And somewhere in there, she ran for president herself. And
she was vetted in terms of her likability.
All the way since district attorney. They go up their rooters and their tutors.
Vetted for likability and acceptability nationwide.
All of it.
Like, okay. So you're let's put on our political strategist hat for just a second. Leanne, we're gonna take this black woman down into the back of Ohio.
Yeah.
Tell them that she's gonna be the president. How do we sell this?
Yeah. First of all, you better send Tim. This is a show that triggers people. Because you free things out. She can go to the C cities. Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati.
The triple C?
You gotta send her to the C cities. You gotta send Tim out there to them counties and stuff. Humboldt County. And all them places. You gotta send Tim over there. That's what you gotta do.
There's still some places in this country they're like,
No. No. So that's where she'll be all right in them C cities though.
Okay, how's she gonna do in the Bible Belt by the buckle? Where they still say that the woman has no place but in the home and certainly not leading the man. The man is the head of the household. There shall be no woman that will ever lead a man. It's against the word of God. It's against God. It's sacrilegious. As a consultant, how do you send her near that buckle in the Bible Belt?
Listen, I think you take a look at these numbers. They are huge Republican plus some number. You have to go where you know you're going to be able to win. And I think we were in such a dark place. And it's not to say we're not in a dark place now. But it was a different kind of dark place when Bush 43 was president, and economic downturn and all the things, and here you've got this enigmatic guy, charismatic, accomplished, with same can be said of his bride, and gave one hell of a speech at the Democratic convention, and 2 years later got us on the ticket, and so with a message of hope. And the ability to articulate how each individual fits into the solution as to where they're going. That's how he was able to do that. He made it accessible. The future was accessible to folks across the country. He won in places that he should have never carried.
I know. I was in Alabama, a white officer with a dog that I thought was Bull Connor's relative looked at me and said, "We got to get him in." I said, "Wow, we gone from sicking that dog on black folks to voting for him."
Yeah. But there was this. It was, I don't know if it was a moment, but what I'll say is he was very adept on an individual basis, accessible, personable, and so is the vice president. It's just a different thing. But at that time, that people could see themselves in a future that this guy was articulating.
I think with the Obama dynamic, whatever the climate was, there's this saying that there's this dog that just keeps yelping because it's sitting on the nail. Mm-hmm. And then somebody goes by and says, why don't he just get up? And they said,
off the nail.
Well, because it don't hurt bad enough yet.
Oh.
And I think that at the time of Obama, whatever was happening,
it was a lot.
It was hurting so bad.
It was a lot.
That we need Christmas addicts.
Yeah. It was.
You know when you get in that situation where you don't care who they are, what they look like, it hurts. Can you fix it? Can you make it feel better? You could come from outer space, but this is out of control. And then boom.
Right. And this dude came with, I don't know. It just, I remember, what I'll say is this, as a vet, I was leaning John McCain. Mm-hmm. And just because I'm all about what these vets are up to. And it wasn't until I started paying, because I was in Massachusetts at the time, working for Raytheon. And it wasn't until he won his primary and I was hearing him speak. I went, wait a minute. Mm-hmm. Wait a minute. Mm-hmm. And so by the time I heard him speak at the Democratic convention, I am now canvassing for the guy. It was the first time I ever had gotten involved at that level, knocking on doors for this guy. And I was excited, and I was like, yeah, this is the guy. I mean, it just was different. It
must have hurt so bad. And then, but he was the right person. I was right fine. Time.
You know what I mean? I was working for defense contract, and we were in 2 wars. They were buying up everything. I was personally fine, right? It's before I got laid off and then ended up unhoused. But at the time, I was fine. Mm-hmm. I thought, and so for me, it was this guy was young. And he was accessible, and he had a way of making people feel like not only were they seen, but they were literally part of the future that he saw. Yeah. And that it was masterful the way he did it, and certainly there was a pinch point. But the other part of that, sir, was the notion that we're still a patriarchal society, and this country, the Dem Party, this country ended up with a Democratic candidate for president that was a black male over a white woman.
I knew that Obama was going to beat Hillary because when you talk about the patriarchy, white men had black men voting before white women.
Correct.
And so the level of I couldn't understand, and I knew historically there's something that white men can't stand about white women. Or women in general. You know what I mean?
Women in general, yeah.
And I'm like,
that could be.
I don't know. But how do you have such disdain for your mother that you make her property too? Because there's women liberation, and white women don't make the connection that they were property also.
They don't.
And that's the luxury.
And they still don't.
Of course, that's the luxury of history and not telling the history about, women being the property of their husbands and having a liberation movement. They will never need a Juneteenth holiday because they will never be put into their mindset that they were the property of white men. And so I knew that history. That's why I knew that Hillary was not going to beat Obama, because the historical narrative. But what was different at that time, and what I want to ask you about the patriarchy and the racism that Kamala Harris has to overcome. She has to overcome class and race at some particular time, and her gender.
Right.
She has to do a triple jump. When you do the Olympics, they do the triple jump. It's not the long jump; it's the triple jump. Right. She gotta get over class. She got to get over race, and she got to get over her gender, and she's got to do it all by October. You know, the ballots are coming out. And so here's the difference with Obama. Obama was introduced to black people by white people. They already liked him. He was already at Harvard. He was already the editor of the Harvard Journal. Harvard, he was, biracial. He's the black excellence that's comfortable, that white folks are comfortable about.
Well, and he didn't have, it's simple truth of the matter, he didn't have that
African black American experience.
He didn't have that enslavement
His father is from Africa.
Yeah.
His mother's from white woman from Kansas.
Kansas,
okay.
heartland.
So just keep in mind, white people introduced Obama to black people.
Yeah.
And so we were already hip to getting behind black presidential candidates because we had already done Keep Hope Alive. We already did Reverend Aldous Sharpton. We got Shirley Chisholm. We got all of the different dynamics that we knew wasn't going to happen, but we was like, but we still going to give it a shot.
Sure.
And now here's the paradox. When Obama came to us, it was black folks that was saying Obama wasn't black.
It's true.
That's what black folks were saying.
That's true.
And
that's true.
It wasn't until Michelle Obama came out and said, hold on a second. First of all, I'm from Chicago and y'all about to knock that nonsense off.
Southside
and
of
black
Chicago.
folks was like, you're right. Black folks didn't listen to Obama. To Barack. Black folks listened to Michelle.
That's right.
And Michelle shut all that stuff down.
She sure did.
Now the difference today is black folks are saying Kamala is clearly black, but it's white folks saying she ain't black.
And that's
her opponent Trump's talking about I didn't even know she was black. I think she just said that. I thought she said she was something else.
When did she turn black?
When did she turn? That was what white folks were saying.
When did she turn black?
And so my question to you is,
we still getting
in the short period of time that we have, and you know how just dysfunctional the psyche is of these United States of America, does Kamala have enough to do the triple jump and still take the White House?
This thing's gonna be tight, and it shouldn't be, and I'm irritated that it is. If their media game, or I should say, let me say it another way, if their get out the vote game is as strong as their media game, yes, they can get that first jump in and get that second jump in. I believe they know where they can in fact win, so you secure those wins. And where you've got a movable middle, then you send in Tim Walz. I mean, I really do believe that. On paper, I mean, she's the perfect candidate. I mean, here's the thing. Here's what women have been told our whole fucking lives. That we had to be, and I'm going to tell you what black women were told. But women generally were told we had to be twice as good. We had to be, our credentials had to make sense. We had to make sure we looked some kind of way in public. Just all this shit. I'm talking about running for office.
Yeah.
That is the conditioning. Because if we are looking at a side by side, we don't care if Trump's makeup is the color of diarrhea. Sometimes, I don't know, a couple of times he's been on TV and I'm just like, that looked just like some old hot diarrhea. Who did this color, man? Soup looking all crazy and talking crazy. And they're busy trying to sane wash it, busy doing AI, got them all buffed out. You know what I mean? And I know, because I ran for office, I know that she's got to tend to a whole bunch of other different things than he's ever had to tend to. And get through that to get to the first jump. So I had no doubt when you had someone who won a countywide race, a statewide race twice, now you're in the Senate, and now you're on the VP ticket. There's nothing to find.
And you're neck and neck with...
And how is that?
You're neck and neck with someone who's...
Trash.
34 felonies,
he's
convicted.
Trash. He's trash.
And a bunch of civil suits. Fucking and trash. More down the pipe. I've reconciled this.
1.28 grade point average or some shit over at Fordham College before that Wharton took him. And you know the only reason Wharton took him is because of his daddy. This dude, a terrible student.
But isn't that the story? Because you've heard the story that a black man with a PhD has a more difficult time getting a job than a white man with a felony.
Correct. Yeah.
It's all in plain view right now.
But that's how that's how this, wow. And then we just going to deny it and keep it moving? I mean, that has always been the case, right? That has always been the case.
Let me tell you how I've reconciled the 34 felony thing.
Okay.
Because I didn't think I could, but I think I can now.
Okay.
And tell me if this works.
Okay.
All right. First of all, I think that racism is in pure view right now. Racism, sexism, and all the other stuff.
Lit up, all the isms.
Like if it's like boop, boop in your face, like if you're thinking about your vote right now, you should see Kamala and you see all the boop, 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 all of that happening. Now,
yeah.
Do you remember when Marion Barry was caught smoking crack in the hotel room with the prostitute?
I do.
And black folks was like, and we still vote for him because y'all set that black man up. And look at all he's done for us as a black. He's been a part of SNCC and all that. Like that man is a hero.
That's what we're doing.
And so don't tell me about Marion Barry smoking crack. We sending him back. He represents us, and y'all set him up. That's the way I think white folks see Donald Trump.
Surely.
Don't tell me about all of that. Look what he's done for the economy. Look what he's done on the international stage. Look what he's done to bring back America.
But
he didn't do none of that.
Right. It's all lies anyway. Like what the hell did you see? You had time to sit at home think about what he did. While everybody was dying with COVID.
The only way I can reconcile what I'm seeing with that is I'm calling it the Marion Barry effect from a white lens.
Got it.
Does that kind of check?
That tracks.
So Kamala got to overcome those folks that say, and so what? We're sending him back.
That's what's happening. That's what's happening. And they will. They will. And I believe the numbers won't change all that much. It's still gonna be about 53% of the white women.
Now that's the piece I gotta ask you about.
I really do believe that.
Okay, the great Leanne Wheeler's in the free think zone right now, and by the way,
get your sisters and your aunts and your nieces and them.
I'm gonna give you guys. I'm gonna give you guys a homework assignment before I ask the great Leanne Wheeler this this particular question.
They will.
There's a little known secret about what we do, and you can Google Brother Jeff's with apostrophe S possessive podcast, and it'll come up on all of your platforms. I don't care if it's Apple or Android or Spotify or whatever. Give it a try, and you'll be able to hear our recap of the debate and some and a whole bunch of other podcasts that we don't necessarily load them up a lot, but try it. Just Google Brother Jeff's podcast, and you can get this on anywhere you find or get your podcast, so you can listen to if you don't want to watch. Now, the great Leanne Wheeler, you set this up, but now I'm going to ask you a direct question, because this is definitely going to play into the upcoming election and who takes the White House.
I'm braced for it.
I'm sure Kamala cannot count on a good number of black men and some of the black community, but that's okay because it's coming from a black position. White folks didn't necessarily bring us Kamala Harris. Black folks have known about Kamala Harris for a long time.
That's true.
And we have a hard time supporting ourselves by ourselves. You know what I mean? And so there are people who are passionate about, I'm not voting for Kamala. Okay. That's fine. We can't count on them. Don't worry about it.
We already discounted it.
But here's
it's
what
not in the math.
Here's what I want to ask you. Can Kamala count on white women?
No. I think the number, I believe the number will be about the same. I've got a dear friend, and I do. I have a dear friend. She's about, how old is she? About 72. And she and I were having this conversation not 3 weeks ago. And she was like very excited that she's got this other white friend who is now thinking about registering to vote. So that white woman hadn't registered to vote. She's just like, whatever is going on, it's probably going to be all right for me. Right? So something had happened. I can't remember which conviction it was. It was one of them convictions. Maybe it was the sex assault one. And this woman saw herself in the woman that was assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
So she said, I am going to. And I said, okay, that's great. I'm glad to hear that you have a friend that's going to be voting for Vice President Harris. So how many friends do you have that won't be either voting because they're not registered to fucking vote? Now, I was surprised to hear this woman wasn't registered to vote until this cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Or are registered and are claiming to be undecided. And she said, well, I'm still hopeful. That's what my dear friend Cindy said. I said, you are hopeful what? That they will do the right thing. I said, what makes you think they'll do the right thing? And she said, all I got is my hope. And I said, okay. I said, what are you saying to them? Because off in the cut, she'll tell me, I'm writing these letters, I'm doing these things. I said, but do you ever ask those other women to help you write those letters and do those things? Oh no, they would never do it.
That's what I'm talking about.
So
that's the point.
So I said, we don't have to talk about this anymore.
See,
those women are going to do what they did in 2016 and in 2020.
I think
and maybe
you're
now
spot
you
on.
get 3 more points on what black men do.
I think you're spot on. I think
so.
the ones that are,
I think it ends up being more.
I think the ones that are very hard hitting for Kamala are really in the kind of woke purview. You know what I mean? The other side calls them woke.
Oh. They're not doing so much of that anymore, are they?
But yeah, they are. Like,
they changed it to DEI.
Like, but I mean,
but I know what you're saying.
Like, the psyche of the U.S. still is white male patriarchy. Father knows best, and all these people of color. It's the white man's burden, and look what we did for the world, and all of those different things. And there are some that go off to college and come back to Thanksgiving in November, and then they're like, the mom says, do not go in there and upset your dad.
You and your liberal college education.
and do me a favor, take off that ding Kamala t-shirt when you come into this house. Leave it, like, just leave it. I get it. Katie, I get it.
But leave it in the car.
But you know how he is.
Yeah, don't upset your father.
And so what is it about? Like, here's the reality, because the white woman has really stood by her man. And when I tell you that white men sold their children into slavery and owned their wives and daughters and all that as property, what is it about women, particularly white women, that keep that that norm in place? Because you know that you all, like you said, are half the sky. You're half the population.
More than half the sky.
What is it about white women, the ones that you know they're like, I'm not going for none of this change? Why?
Well, what I'll say is this. W.E.B. Du Bois had it right when he said, I believe it was him, when he said that there was a psychological wage that was prevalent in particular in lower caste. So we're a caste system, even though we pretend we're not. And so back then, the psychological wage was whiteness and proximity to whiteness, but specifically whiteness. And you may not have shit. You might be up in this holler. You might be living in this rackety shack. I mean, we're seeing pictures of people with their stuff dilapidated with a Trump flag flying. You might be all of that, but at least you aren't fucking black. You're not black. So you're doing all right. And I think there is some psychological wage. I don't know what the equivalent would be in 2024 or in 2016 or in 2020. But because there were more who did not vote for a woman candidate than did in 2016. And I believe they're poised to do it again in 2020, or 24. But in 2020, they voted more for Trump, white women did, than they did in 2016 after COVID, after all of that stuff. All this, I mean, it was a dismantling of this federal government. There was some stuff that went on that there was something happening every day because we were distracted every day. But what I'll say, to get back to your question, was that whatever the psychological wage is, and I'm not sure I know what that currency looks like, what unit of currency that looks like, but I think that's the why. I think he was right about that. And so it's not a matter of so even going back to the days when folks were enslaved, this white man was getting up out of his marital bed and going out to the slave quarters and just raping these women and come back and get in your bed.
But before getting back in the bed, he reads the Bible.
Or whatever the case. He might have read it before he got up out the bed. Yeah. For some kind of family prayer. But I don't know. I can't imagine what. And then, maybe she got upset, said something to him. And so then he said, well, you can have her. Do with her what you will. And so then he would give this enslaved woman that he raped to his wife to do with whatever she would. And
she would treat her exceptionally horribly.
Extra.
In terms of the get back.
All extra.
And hate the kid that's produced.
Absolutely.
And make sure that child is sold. I don't want to see it.
That's how it happens.
I don't want to see it.
That, I believe, is how it happened. You said, how does it happen? How did that happen? I believe that's how that happened. Wow. So it didn't keep him from getting up out his bed and doing it again whenever he got ready the next day. But so there's something in that I don't understand. So I don't know what I can only speak for what my black mother said to me and what my black auntie said to me and their kids, my cousins. I don't know what white mothers say to their white daughters. I don't know what they say. I'd be curious to know what they say.
I know some white women who have answered this for me. Well, didn't answer it, but I know enough white women out here now, and I talk to them and I ask them about how's their campaigning going. Yeah. Because they're making phone calls, they're knocking on doors. Yeah. And many of them are saying, they're met with hostility as it relates to their campaigning for Kamala. Now that's in their world. Yeah, that's now, true. And I've also talked to white women who said the reason Hillary was not elected is because white women know not to trust white women.
I had a white woman say that to me. She can out herself if she wants to. And she said that we cannot be trusted. You shouldn't even trust me. That's what she said.
I think I have an answer to the why now, because when white women...
So what about it?
Listen, when white women understand that they were also property,
ooh, yeah,
then what they have to wrestle with, but they won't be able to identify it for many years until they come to the realization of their enslavement, is that they too suffer from a slave mentality.
Ooh. Ooh.
See, it's easy when you talk about the norms of black folks and how that peculiar institution impacted generations of black people even until today. God. And you can call it post-traumatic slave disorder. You can call it distress. You can call it slave mentality. And you could go to Carter G. Woodson, who talks about if you condition a person to go through the back door, if there's no back door for them to go to, they will protest and fight to make sure there's a back door that they can use.
That's right.
And so white women are going to have to come to the realization, and it's painful, that what you call patriarchy is really your response, and you have a slave mentality. Otherwise, you would just get up off that nail.
Oh, shit.
You don't have to talk about the glass ceiling. We're going to shatter it. We're going to do all that. You gave birth to them men.
Woo, the hand that rocked the cradle.
And so to flip this in the next 30, 40 days before this election, I think Kamala's going to, and I agree with you, she can't count on the majority of white women.
No.
She can't count on that Christian conservative Bible Belt Buckle group. She can count on, and hopefully the Democratic Party machine is up, oiled, and ready to go, and also labor.
And what she can count on, I believe, are those kids that got the fuck away from their parents.
That's the woke group.
Like this young kid, David Hogg, the ones who had to do gun shooting drills and all this shit. There's something happening with those young people getting themselves organized. So I think there's going to be an offset. So that same white woman potentially who said I voted for him in 16. We used to call it the Marion Barry effect. I voted for him in 1620. I'm gonna vote for him in 24 too, as well. Then my hope would be if she had some damn kids and they went off somewhere and started a life or went to school, that they will in fact leave the Kamala shirt in the car.
Wow.
Or whatever they had to do to not be ostracized from their families. It's a pretty important thing, as young people to be able to go and come back. So I get that. You're going to do what you got to do as part of the get along gang. But there's going to be some offset, I think, in that group. And that group is also going to offset some of the black men who are saying they're not going to vote for it either. Mm-hmm. So our hope truly is with this young group that saw a black president, saw one, lived through with some memories.
And they call themselves allies, like they stand up for difference. They're used to being around difference. They see a different world.
Right. They out here being loud about what they need.
They are out here protesting. They marched in the Black Lives Matter movement. They did all of that stuff.
Yep.
They're
gonna offset.
The future is going to be in the hands of those who came up in a different world, and yet it's still going to be tight. It's going to be a nail biter.
I'll be surprised if it's not. I will not be surprised if Trump wins either.